Welcome to another episode of Software Explorations, Concepts and Overviews, hosted by yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph, where we are engineered to win. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about zero trust architecture. So this is something that was not even on my radar at all, but in one of the chats that we're having on a live stream, shout out to the Wealth Building Journey, he asked, hey, have you ever heard of zero trust architecture? And I was like, zero trust architecture, what the heck is that? But I said, you know what? I added it to my list. I added it to my any-do list and said, we are going to look into that. And I found it absolutely fascinating. And I wanted to share it with you on this Software Explorations so that we can find out a little bit more about about zero trust architecture, a cybersecurity principle, to be honest with you. And so we're going to get into it. We're going to find out more and we're going to run it up together and we're going to find out. We're going to learn. That's what we do here. We learn, we have fun learning and all that. And then at the end, I am going to give an example that's going to break it down in a very easy to understand level outside of tech, outside of cybersecurity, in a way that we can relate to super easy. All right. So stay tuned to the end and I will break that down. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get started. All right. So our topic, like I said, is zero trust architecture. Let's get into our presentation. And the most important part of zero trust architecture is never trust, always verify. And she looks like she's not trusting and she is trying to verify something because it looks like they're having a heated discussion. But hey, never trust, always verify. Maybe not a good principle for relationships, but definitely a good principle for managing security for companies, data, things like that. All right. So our agenda for today is introduction to zero trust architecture. What are the principles of zero trust architecture, the key components of it, the benefits of using it, zero trust architecture versus traditional models, how to implement zero trust architecture, some use cases, and some challenges and considerations when approaching it, when using it, the future trends of zero trust architecture, and then we're going to wrap it up with our conclusion and my example to help break it down to a easier to understand level, because a lot of this stuff is new to us. So we are trying to figure it out. We're trying to learn together. All right. So let's jump into it. So introduction, we're going to define zero trust architecture, and then we're going to have a brief history and the evolution of security models, how they have progressed throughout throughout their life cycle. So the definition of zero trust architecture. It is a cybersecurity model that fundamentally shifts how organizations secure their IT environment. Zero trust operates on a principle that no entity, whether inside or outside the network, should be trusted by default. So never trust. Instead, every access request is thoroughly verified before granting access. So like it says, never trust, always verify every single time. We don't trust you. We don't know you, right? At any given moment, you can switch up on us and you can work for the other side. You can play for the other team, and we are not having that whatsoever, right? So let's look at some of these traditional models, right? So let's say the first one, perimeter-based security. So the concept of perimeter-based security is it's like a castle. Remember back in the days, King Arthur and the Knights of Justice? A castle surrounded by a moat. You know, the moat is like the little body of water around it. The idea was to create a strong defensive perimeter to protect everything inside the network. So inside the castle, inside the kingdom, you had that big wall, people can't get in. It was a defensive perimeter to protect everything inside the network. The tools that they would use would be firewalls, intrusion detection, prevention systems, IDS, IPS, right? But what are the limitations of this? Just like in Troy, in that big old whatever, that horse or whatever that they had, once they got inside of the perimeter, they were free to run wild. They had relatively free access to internal resources. It also struggled with the rise of mobile and remote work. Because once you get into that system, that's, now you infiltrate. So that is the limitation of perimeter-based security. Now, trust but verify. What does that mean? So the concept is, while the perimeter was still important, there was a growing emphasis on verifying the identity of users and devices within the network. So who's in the building? Who's there, right? So the tools used would be user authentication mechanisms, including passwords and later multi-factor authentication, MFA. Now, defensive in depth, right? So the concept is layered security approach that involve multiple defense across different parts of the network. So the layers would be network security, endpoint security, application security, and data security. The tools that would be used would be antivirus software, encryption, network segmentation, and regular patching. Limitations of that would be managing multiple layers of defense became complex and resource intensive. So you need a lot of resources to be able to manage it that way. So it's not optimal. It's better, but not necessarily optimal. We are being very defensive minded. All right, next up, we have Beyond Corp and Perimeterless. So it was initiated by Google with their Beyond Corp initiative. The concept shifted focus away from the traditional perimeter, emphasizing secure access from any location without relying on VPNs. The principles was secure access to applications and data regardless of device or location, continuous monitoring, and adaptive access control. And now we are here to Zero Trust Architecture. So developed by Forrester Research in 2010, popularized and adopted widely in subsequent years, the concept was never trust, always verify. Yes, always verify. Every access request is thoroughly verified regardless of its origin. We don't care where you are from. You better show up with ID and saying, this is who I am and I belong here, right? So that is the idea behind Zero Trust Architecture, right? So let's move on. So the principles of Zero Trust Architecture would be continuous authentication and authorization, the least privileged access. So you have no rights, and as you need them, we'll grant them to you. Microsegmentation to limit lateral movement. So you might be able to access this part of the network, but you can't access that part. You can't access this folder because why do you need it? Prove to me that you need it, and then we'll give it to you, right? And you always assume a breach. You don't just say, oh, it's just Joe, it's just Dave. No, who did Dave switch up? Did Dave switch up? Is he working for the enemy? Right? So the tools that would be used for Zero Trust Architecture is identity and access management. We have a great video about that. Multi-factor authentication, microsegmentation, encryption, security information, and event management SIEM. I think we did a video about SIEM as well. And we did some with Grafana, we did some exploration with SIEM. So, great video to check out in the past. So let's keep going. All right, so modern adaptive security. The concept is use advanced analytics and machine learning to dynamically adjust security measures based on real-time data. The principles would be proactive threat detection, automated responses, and continuous monitoring. The tools that are used is AI, artificial intelligence driven threat detection, behavior analytics, automated incidents, and response systems. All right, so what do we get from these evolution and the takeaway of the security models, right? So the evolution is driven by the threats because these hackers, they do not quit. They are always they're always one step ahead, right? So they're finding ways to breach the systems and stuff like that. And it's like, all right, cool. We got it. We have to continue to evolve, right? So the evolution of the security model has been driven by the changing threat landscape and technological advances from static to dynamic, right? So security models have shifted from static, perimeter-based defense to dynamic, continuous verification, and adaptive responses. User-centric approaches. Modern security models place a significant emphasis on identity and access management, ensuring that users and devices are authenticated and authorized continuously. And that's why you have these timeouts on there. So every 6 hours you have to sign back in just to make sure you are who you say you are and that you have the proper credentials to be where you think that you should be. So what are the principles of Zero Trust authentication? We touched on it briefly, but let's go through the list, right? So what are the principles of Zero Trust architecture? We touched on it briefly, but let's go through the list. So verify explicitly. And what does that mean? It's always authenticate and authorize based on all available data points, including user identity, location, device health, service or workload, data classification, and anomalies. Use strong authentication methods such as multi-factor authentication, MFA, to ensure robust identity verification. So you see how sometimes you'll try to let's say you're traveling to, let's say you live in Georgia and you're traveling to Seattle, Washington, and you try to log into something that says, hey, we don't recognize you from this location. Are you sure it's you? And they say, yes, I'm sure it's me. And it's okay. We're going to send you a text and you need to enter this code from your text that we text you, and then you enter it, and then now you have access, right? So that is the idea behind verify explicitly. And in working for an actual company, they'll want you to verify every so often that you are who you say you are in order to protect their data. So they'll use location, they'll use your identity, they'll use the health of your device, all that good stuff, right? So, and then now with the least privilege access, so it limits the user and system access to only what is necessary to perform their job functions. This minimizes the attack surface and potential damage from a breach. So, and also it implements just in time and just enough access, JIT, and JEA, policies to restrict access, duration, and privileges. So for this amount of time that you need this access for, and at this time we're not just going to have you authenticated forever. It's like when you need it, that's when we're going to give it to you. And you don't if you work in HR, for instance, you don't need to be accessing what is in the IT departments, in the software engineering department's folder. The same way, if you're working in IT, you don't need to be accessing what's in the marketing department's folder. So it's going to limit your access. And then if you try to access, you're gonna get a flag. Okay, why are you trying to access this thing? What's it to you? And then you have to explain why. Because it leads us to our next principle: is assume a breach. Design the network and security controls under the assumption that an internal breach has already occurred and is inevitable. This shifts the focus to perimeter security to containing potential threats and minimizing their impact. Continuously monitoring all logs and network activities and access patterns to detect and respond to anomalies and suspicious behavior promptly. So, and I spoke about this a while ago, where I was at work one time and we had to run these scripts over the weekend to do these changes. And someone reached out to me and says, "Hey, I see that you are running. We're getting a lot of requests from you. Is this valid?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm running these scripts. Okay, we're gonna add you to a list that's not gonna flag you for the next 48 hours." And they're like, "Is that enough time?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's enough time." So we went through the weekend and the scripts were running, and then we were all good. And then I let them know, I'm like, "Hey, I'm done running the scripts. You can add me. You can remove me from this list so that if anything nefarious seems to pop up under my name, you can let me know. You can check it out." Right? So that is the idea about assume the breach, and they'll respond to you. Like, as soon as they see some activity that's suspicious, they're going to respond to you. Right? Micro segmentation: divide the network into smaller isolated segments to contain and limit the spread of potential breaches. Each segment can enforce its own security policies and controls. Use software-defined perimeter and granular access controls to secure communications within and between segments. All right, and end-to-end encryption. That is to encrypt data both in transit and at the rest to protect sensitive information from being intercepted or accessed by unauthorized entities. Yes, not those pesky unauthorized entities. Ensure the encryption keys are managed securely and access to them is tightly controlled. And continuing with continuous monitoring and risk assessment. Implement real-time monitoring and analytics to continuously assess the security posture and detect potential threats or policy violations. Use machine learning and artificial intelligence to enhance threat detection capabilities and respond to incidents swiftly. All right. Next up, device and endpoint security. Ensuring that all devices connecting to the network meet security standards and are regularly updated and patched. Implement endpoint detection and response, EDR, endpoint detection and response solutions to monitor device activity and respond to threats. And we continue with user behavior analytics. Monitor user behavior. So watch those guys. Watch them, right? Watch them, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Monitor user behavior and build baseline profiles to detect deviations that could indicate compromised account or malicious activities. Implement automated responses to suspicious behavior, such as temporarily restricting access or requiring reauthentication. So, like it says, and you can do this automated, right? If you see like all these pings are coming in, you say, all right, we're gonna block this person for 5 minutes. And you've seen that, like you try to log into Facebook or Google or whatever with the wrong password X amount of times, it's gonna say, all right, you have to wait 5-10 minutes. And it even does it on the phones as well. You try to log in with the wrong password on your phone, the wrong, imagine if you have the face detection and then you go have some surgery that did not go so well. And now your phone can't even recognize your face. Imagine how that's going to go, right? So let's continue with policy automation. Use automated systems to enforce security policies consistently and reduce the potential for human error. Regularly update and review policies to adapt to emerging threats and changing business needs. And lastly, we have the robust incident response. Develop and regularly test incident response plans to ensure a quick and effective reaction to secure incidents, coordinate coordinate response efforts across the organization to minimize impact and recover from breaches. All right, let's keep going. So, what are the key components of zero trust architecture? So, it's comprised of several key components designed to enforce the principles of zero trust and ensure robust security. These components work together to continuously verify and authenticate access, protect data, and monitor for threats. So what are those components, right? So identity and access management, we have a very good and long video about that, but a quick recap. Identity and access management, authentication side of it, ensure strong user authentication, including multi-factor authentication, MFA, to verify user identities. Authorization side is implement role-based access control, RBAC, and attribute-based access control, ABAC, to enforce least privilege access. Right. So we've covered this extensively. I would highly recommend you go. And I'm gonna pop the link to the identity and access management video right here. It is our top video on the channel. Very, very useful information, especially if you're looking to become an identity and access management engineer. Definitely check that out. All right. So next up, device security. So device security includes endpoint security, deploy endpoint detection and response, EDR. We just spoke about that. Tools to monitor and protect devices. Device compliance, ensure that devices meet security standards and are regularly updated and patched. I don't know if you ever tried to log in with your phone to your work account or whatever, and it says, all right, we are going to monitor your device like a hawk because you have logged into our system. Because you logged into our system, now we are responsible for what happens on your device. Right? So be careful about logging onto your device to your company. Right? Now, the other component is network segmentation. We spoke about that. Microsegmentation, divide the network into smaller isolated segments to limit lateral movement or threats. Software-defined perimeter, use virtualized boundaries to control access to resource based on identity and context. All right. Next up, data security. Data encryption, encrypt data both in transit and at rest to protect it from unauthorized access. We just spoke about that. Data loss prevention, though. Implement data loss prevention solutions, DLP, to monitor and control the movement of sensitive data. The SIEM, security information and event management, real-time monitoring, analytics and threat intelligence, very, very important. Continuous monitoring, right? Just make sure, use analytics to feed the data, so you can make the smart decisions. Access control, zero trust network access, ZTNA, provide secure remote access based on continuous verification of users and device identities. Policy enforcement points, PEPS, not to be confused with a PIP, right? A PEPS, not a PIP. A PIP is a performance improvement plan. A PEP is a policy enforcement point. Deploy PEPs at various points in the network to enforce access policies and control traffic. We have continuous diagnostics and mitigation, CDM, vulnerability management, regularly scan for vulnerabilities and apply patches promptly. Is so important. And how many times have we read stories where companies delayed and then now they had a serious security breach because they didn't apply the patches promptly? Risk assessment, continuously assess risk and adapt security measures accordingly. Next, we have application security. Secure development practices, integrate security into software development lifecycle. Very, very important. You can't live without. Everything has to be integrated now, right? Runtime application self-protection, monitor and protect applications in real time against threats and attacks. And we have user behavior analytics, UBA, behavior monitoring, analyze user behavior to detect anomalies and potential threats. Automated responses, implement automated responses to suspicious activities such as re-authentication requests or access restrictions. And it's pretty much monitoring what people are doing, making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing at the company, and they're not wandering to different sites, and not different sites, but especially different sites within company information, because you don't want anyone just accessing whatever confidential information there is out there, right? And then we have incident response, incident detection, quickly detect and identify security incidents. Response and recovery, have a well-defined incident response plan and regularly test them to ensure effective recovery from breaches, all right? And then lastly, we have automation and orchestration. Security orchestration, automation and response, SOAR, automate routine security tasks and coordinate response efforts to improve efficiency and effectiveness, all right? So by integrating these components, organizations can create a robust zero trust architecture that continuously verifies every access point, protects data and resources, and responds swiftly to potential threats, right? So what more can you ask for? What more can you ask for, right? So now, before we get into the benefits of zero trust architecture, we are going to make an announcement. So let's take a quick break real quick. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and for following me along as I'm learning with you about Zero Trust architecture. This information is absolutely fascinating. And if you find it fascinating as well, do me a big favor. Go ahead and like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can know every single time that we go live. And if you are in need of one-on-one technical coaching, go over to www.techcoachralph.dev where you can sign up for exclusive content as well as a coaching plan so that we can work together and we can get you to that next step, right? So just wanted to say that. Take a quick break because this is a lot of information. Just take a breather. Say, "Ooh, okay, Tech Coach Ralph, this is a lot. Give me a break. And now let's go back. Right? Let's talk about the benefits of Zero Trust architecture. All right. So what are the benefits of Zero Trust architecture? So let's run down the list real quick, right? So we have enhanced security, reduced impact of breaches, improved compliance, increased visibility, flexibility and scalability, enhanced user experience, cost efficiency, proactive risk management, future-proofing security, and simplified security management. And to just touch on these a little bit, right? So enhanced security. So you minimize the attack surface. So that pretty much means they can't get too, the breach is not going to hurt too much, right? So, and then you have continuous verification where you can always make sure that people are where they're supposed to be, and because at any given moment you can cut off access and now they should also be cut off, right? So with the reduced impact of security breach, it has containment. So the microsegmentation and strict access controls ensure that if a breach occurs, it is confined to a limited part of the network, preventing lateral movement. We've seen how many times that a hacker gets into one part of it, and because there is no enhanced security, there's no minimized attack surface, right? They can just go all over the place and they can get all types of company data, and we don't want that, right? Quick detection and response. So it's like with our continuous monitoring, we can quickly see when people are in who should not be in, and then we can we can get to war. Right? So increased visibility. We spoke about that. So comprehensive monitoring. We can see what's going on. You have these nice dashboards, see exactly who's where at what time. Behavioral insights. So that's all that, right? So many things. Let's talk about cost efficiency because that's very important, right? Optimize resource utilization. By reducing the likelihood and impact of breaches, organizations can avoid significant costs associated with incident response, remediation. Remediation is super expensive, and downtime. And downtime, it's what kills companies, right? Lower operational costs. Automation and orchestration reduce the burden of IT and security teams, allowing them to focus on strategic initiatives rather than routine tasks, which is very important, right? So that being said, let's continue. So let's compare ZTA, Zero Trust architecture, with some traditional models, right? So the traditional perimeter-based security, it relies on a strong boundary. Once breach, internal movement is less restricted. We spoke about that. Beyond Corp, we spoke about this earlier as well, developed by Google, focuses on user and device identity, removing the need for a trusted internal network. Software-defined perimeter provides security access by creating virtual boundaries around applications, focusing on network security. And then we have identity and access management. It identifies it manages identities and their access rights, essential but limited without a broader context. So you just need to have more information. So how do we get into implementing Zero Trust architecture? So it's going to be pretty basic, right? We have to assess and plan. I mean, it's basic in understanding, but it's going to be a lot of work, right? So let's get to it. So assess and plan, right? Define the scope and the objectives, we're going to run through the list real quick, and then we're going to go one by one to get a good understanding, right? So assess and plan. Establish identity and access management, secure the devices, microsegment the network, encrypt the data, continuous monitoring and analytics, automate and orchestrate the security responses, establish policy and governance, review and improve, and engage stakeholders, right? So, and it's not like you have to do all this at once before you get started, because after you assess the plan and you have a game plan, now you can start with establishing the IAM, the identity and access management. And then once you get that done, you start using that, and then you get to the secure device, right? So let's talk about it. So for assess and plan, define the scope and the objective. Determine the specific goals of your Zero Trust implementation, such as reducing insider threats, securing the remote network. Then you identify the critical assets, data, applications, and the services that need to be protected. Then you're going to conduct the risk assessment, evaluate the current security posture, and identify the vulnerabilities and the gaps. Very important. Assess potential threats and the potential impacts of the breach. Next up, develop a Zero Trust strategy. So create a roadmap, like I was saying, a game plan for implementation, prioritizing the most critical areas. Then you're going to establish a governance framework to oversee the Zero Trust initiative. Then next up, we move on to establishing the identity and access management. So you need to implement a strong authentication. Enforce, like it's not a choice, enforce multi-factor authentication, MFA, for all users and all devices. And just recently, just for me to log into my work computer, I have to do MFA to make sure that I can even access the computer. Not only accessing the network, but accessing my computer as itself. Now I need to use my phone to verify that I should be accessing that computer right there, right? So that is like every time you restart, you have to do that MFA for the computer, right? So use a single sign-on to streamline access while maintaining security. Adopt a principle of least privileges, apply role-based access control, RBAC, and attribute-based access control, ABAC. Regularly review and adjust access permissions to ensure they are aligned with current roles and needs. And then we have the secure the devices, right? So secure device, ensure device compliance, implement endpoint detection and response, EDR solutions, enforce policies for device security, including regular updates and patches. Next up, we have to monitor the device health, make sure, continuously assess security postures of devices, make sure they're not like spamming the network, use mobile device management, MDM solutions to enforce security policies on mobile devices. All right. So the next thing we have to do is in our implementation of zero trust architecture is going to be micro segment the network. What does that mean? So you're gonna have to define the network segments. Segment the network based on function, sensitivity, and risk level of assets. Implement VLANs, virtual LANs, or virtual local area networks, or software-based networks, SDNs, for microsegmentation. Control access with segments. Apply granular access controls to each segment. So each segment that you create, who can access, what can access, right? Use next generation firewalls, NGFWs, and network access controls, NACs, solutions to enforce policies. So after we get that done, after we microsegment the network, we have to encrypt the data. So encrypt data in transit and at rest. Use TLS and SSL for data in transit. Encrypt sensitive data stored in databases and file systems. Manage encryption keys securely. Implement robust key management practices. Use hardware security modules, HSMs, or cloud-based key management services, KMS. All right. So implement continuous monitoring apps, right? So now we are almost like we are moving along through our implementation of zero trust architecture. And this would be like an amazing project for someone to set up if they were interested in going into this realm of cybersecurity. Very, very, very cool, right? So implement continuous monitoring and analytics. Deploy security information and event management SIEM. And we did that with our Grafana tool to log our application, right? Collect and analyze logs from various sources to detect anomalies and threats. Use machine learning and AI to enhance threat detection. Monitor user behavior. Implement user and entity behavior analytics, UEBA, to identify unusual activities. Yep. Set up alerts for potential security incidents and policy violations. That way, whenever you see something weird, like I was saying earlier, it sends a ping to the security analyst, and then they can reach out to you and say, hey, what the hell are you doing, right? Make sure that you're doing the right things. Implement automated remediation. Use automated tools to enforce security policies and respond to threats in real time. Regularly update response playbooks based on new threat intelligence and incident learnings, right? And next up, we have established policies and governance. Define security policies. Develop and document security policies aligned with zero trust principles. Ensure policies cover identity, device security, network access, data protection, and incident response. And then we also have to train and educate the users. And that's why you have to take these security trainings every single year or every 6 months. However your company defines the policy, you have to take these security trainings to make sure that, and you have to agree that you're going to follow these policies and foster a security first culture across the organization. Security first, and that's how you make it work. And then review and improve. Conduct regular audits and assessments every year. Every 6 months, you should be auditing and assessing what you have going on to make sure that the way that we're approaching it, the way that we're implementing it is effective. And then we perform penetration testing and vulnerability assessments to identify and address the weaknesses that we find. Update and adapt, stay informed about new threats and evolving security technologies. Continuously refine and adapt the zero trust architecture to meet changing security needs and business objectives. And lastly, we have engage the stakeholders. So after you get all this work done, we also have to engage the stakeholders, involve key stakeholders, engage IT, security, and business leaders in the zero trust initiative, explain to them why it's so important, ensure alignment with organization goals, and obtain necessary support and resources. A lot of times, like the security people, they just go off on a tangent and they're like, we need this, without explaining why. But with good explanation and getting buy-in, then we can make sure that everyone is security minded and that we can protect our organization, right? And then you want to communicate the progress and the benefits, saying like, okay, by us implementing this is the success that we're having. Like I always say, celebrate your wins. The security team should always keep giving updates, maybe doing a newsletter or a blog post, whatever, to say like, this is where we're at. This is how we're doing. These are the threats that we've detected. This is our success, right? To regularly communicate the progress and benefits of zero trust implementation to stakeholders, highlight improvements in security posture and risk reduction. All right. So by following these steps, organizations can successfully implement zero trust architecture, creating a more secure and resilient IT environment that is better equipped to handle modern threats. All right. So let's keep going. All right. So what are some use cases? And isn't that an amazing graphic right there? What are some use cases for zero trust architecture? Let's find out. So remote work. The scenario is employee working from home or other remote locations. The implementation: enforce multi-factor authentication, MFA, for all remote accesses. Use zero trust network access solutions to ensure secure connections. Continuously monitor user activity and device health. The benefits of doing this would be ensuring that the remote worker can securely access corporate resources, reduces the risk of credential theft and unauthorized access. All right, so another scenario is protecting cloud environments. So the scenario would be applications and data hosted in public, private, and hybrid cloud environments. So what's the implementation? Implement microsegmentation, like we spoke about, to isolate cloud workloads. Use identity and access management, IAM, to control access to cloud resources. Encrypt data in transit and at rest within the cloud. We spoke about that, data security. And the benefits of doing this would be enhance the security of cloud deployments, prevent lateral movement of threats within the cloud environment. So all the stuff that we're reading about, we see how it can be practically applied. So now, securing bring your own device, BYOD, bring your own device policies. So the scenario is employee using personal devices to access corporate resources, like I was mentioning earlier. Ensure all devices meet security standards and are regularly updated. Deploy mobile device management, MDM solutions to enforce security policies. Monitor device health and behavior continuously. And then what are the benefits of doing this, right? Protects corporate data access from personal devices, reduces the risk of data breaches from unsecured or compromised devices. Yep, that's what we need, because we just can't have anyone roaming the system. So mitigating ransomware. So the scenario is preventing and responding to ransomware threats. The implementation would be enforce least privileged access to minimize potential attack vectors, implement continuous monitoring and rapid response mechanisms, regularly back up data and test recovery processes. The benefits of doing this would be reducing the likelihood of ransomware infections, ensures the rapid recovery and minimal impact in case of an attack. Right? So what are some potential challenges of implementing the zero trust architecture? Let's find out together. So the list real quick. We have complexity of implementation, and it does seem a bit difficult, a lot of work. And what type of user experience that we're going to have, the scalability of it, how much it's going to cost, and the data privacy and compliance. So let's get into this real quick, because we're almost done, right? We're almost done. So complexity of implementation, integration with existing systems, integrating zero trust principles with legacy systems can be challenging due to compatibility issues. Yep, that makes sense. If you have an old system, and now if you need to upgrade, that's going to cost a lot too, right? So infrastructure overall, moving to a zero trust model often requires significant changes to the existing IT infrastructure, which can be complex and time consuming. Now, what about the user experience? So usability versus security. Striking a balance between stringent security measures and a smooth user experience can be difficult. Overly complex authentication processes can frustrate the users. And I think every time you introduce something new, there's going to be some frustration involved. But as it starts being into your daily routine, then you're gonna get used to it, right? Because I remember when I had to, every time I had to log into the VPN, it was like, oh my God, I have to go and do the two-factor authentication over and over and over again. So training and awareness. Employees need to be trained on new authentication processes and security protocols, which can be resource intensive. Next up, scalability. Managing increased load. Implementing continuous authentication and monitoring can place additional load on IT systems, requiring scalable solutions to handle the increased traffic and data, as well as dynamic environments. Adapting zero trust principles to dynamic and scalable environments like cloud services require careful planning and execution, and that leads to cost, which is a big factor of it, right? Initial investment. The initial cost of implementing zero trust, including new technologies, training, and potential infrastructure upgrades, can be very, very high. Ongoing maintenance would be continuous monitoring, regular updates, and maintenance of zero trust systems incur ongoing costs. It's expensive. Security is very, very expensive, right? And data privacy and compliance. So regulatory requirements, ensuring compliance with data protection regulations while implementing zero trust can be complex, especially in industries with stringent compliance requirements. Data localization, handling data localization laws and ensuring that the data is stored and processed within certain geographical boundaries adds another layer of complexity, right? So those are the potential challenges that we face when implementing zero trust architecture. Now, what are some future trends for zero trust architecture? I'm not going to get into these in depth. I'm just going to go down the list real quick. So, because a lot of them, they kind of make sense, right? So passwordless authentication. How can you authenticate without having to actually put a password that might be related to biometrics, whether it's fingerprints, eye scans, who knows? Face recognition, who knows, right? Context-aware authentication, artificial intelligence and machine learning, integration with Internet of Things, decentralized identity solutions, enhanced multi-factor authentication, cloud-native zero-trust solutions, as we move into the cloud, advanced encryption techniques, user experience enhancements, how to have a better user experience so that they don't, hate. And because when people hate stuff, they start using it less and they start to cut corners. So having a good user experience with zero trust architecture, regulatory and compliance adaptations. So as the government and regulatory bodies start to catch up, how do we adapt zero trust architecture into that? And then identity as a service. And lastly, supply chain security. All right, let's keep going. So that is the end. Conclusion. So what we spoke about today, right? We spoke about the introduction to zero trust architecture, the principles of zero trust architecture, the key components, the benefits of it, zero trust architecture versus the traditional models, how to implement it. We spent a bit of a time on that. The use cases for zero trust architecture, we looked about maybe about 5 of them, some challenges and considerations for it, the future trends of zero trust architecture. And then lastly, what are your thoughts on this? What are your concerns about zero trust architecture? Let me know. All right. So let's go back to our full screen. And as we wrap it up, I said I was going to break it down to a very, very basic understanding, right? So here's my idea. Here's my example. Let's say you have a building. So you have a building. Or let's say you have a house. Let's say you have your house, right? And you just bought this house. You bought this amazing house. And you move into your house with your family. And now you are going to make it the most secure possible. You're not just going to let anyone, so let's say you have a key to get in, but also with that key, you have 2 different keys. You have a deadbolt, you have a regular key, and you also have a deadbolt lock where you have to put in a code or use a fingerprint or do an eye scan. Now, whoever has access to that, they can enter the house. But once you enter the house, every single door is locked in the house. There's a door for the kitchen, there's a door for the garage, there's a door for each bedroom, and they're all locked. And they all require either a key or a code or both. That way, just because you're in the house, you might be able to get to the living room, but you can't get to anywhere else in the house. Never trust, always verify. So now to get into that room, and everyone has their own code. And now let's say the kids, they can get into certain rooms. So they can go into the bathroom or their bedroom, but they do not have the code to access the parents' bedroom, the master bedroom, or the garage or the kitchen. Now, let's say you get into the kitchen, and you have, let's say you let a guest in to your house, and now they're in they have a temporary access. They go into the kitchen, and they just decide to go into your fridge without even asking. Can I go into the fridge? And now they're looking around what you have in your fridge, whoa, boundaries, please. So now that they're in the kitchen, they try to go into your fridge, but wait. You need access to the fridge. You need a code. You can't even get water from the fridge without this code. Because you don't want these people coming in and eating all your food. So now you have to go into, you want something? Let me get it for you at the fridge, and you put in the code. And every time you put in the code, it could text you a new code because what if they saw your code and now they use it and now they eat all your food? No. So so to me, that is a way of breaking down the zero trust architecture. You don't trust anybody. I think Boozy said he had a song that said trust nobody. Always verify. Are you where you're supposed to be? So you have the fort locked down. You can even start. Is it a gated community? Do you have a gate in front of your house? You can't even get to the house. But let's say you get past the security, right? And now you get to the house. Now there's a gate there which you have to actually call. You have to put in a code, whatever the case may be. And you get there, now you get to the front door. You have a bunch of what you need to put in use different keys, 2 different keys, and a security code, and an eye scan, and a fingerprint to get in. Now, once you get into there, everything is locked. And let's say for the front door, you have to use your index finger as the fingerprint, and you have to use your right eye as the eye scan. Now, to get into the master bedroom, you need to use your left eye as the scan and your right thumbprint as the fingerprint. And you have 2 different keys as well, and a code. Now, what do you have in your house that you need that level of security? I have absolutely no idea. But that is the way that I break down the zero trust architecture. You don't trust anybody. And then inside the room, now there's a safe as well. And in that safe, you need like 10 different ways of verifying to make sure that, because that's where all your personal secret stuff, like the most valuable things are in that safe. So that's my example of zero trust architecture. Hopefully you found that helpful and useful. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was a long one, but it was a lot of information to break down. Hopefully you found it helpful and interesting and entertaining. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Before we head out, if you haven't done so already, do me a big favor. Go ahead and like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can know every single time that we go live or drop new content. And if you are in need of personal one-on-one coaching with me, go over to www.techcoachralph.dev, where you can sign up for a coaching plan as well as get access to exclusive content that is not on YouTube. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Tech Coach Ralph, and we are out.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.